Saif had turned into a man comfortable with his new hot body, but also with its effect on others. You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review on AMI Audio. I'm Jacob Shamansky, and I'm with Ramya Almathintu. Ramya, you know what that quote reminds me of? You know in The Office, where there's a talking head with the boss, and not Michael, the other one, the one that comes after him, and he says, "I'm aware of the effect I have on women."
I don't remember the scene, but can picture it.
Anyways, that's the quote that I found. I don't know. I literally put a marker when I was listening because I was like, that's the quote.
This is hilarious.
Right there.
Yeah.
You know someone else who's comfortable with his hot body? Aamer Khan. How's it going, man?
Whoa.
I need a minute.
Didn't realize we'd do that on the show.
I will say, out of all the quotes in the books, you chose that one, Jacob.
Yeah,
wow.
it's perfect. It encompasses the book so well.
Does it, though?
It unironically kind of does, yeah.
It does.
Anyways, the book that we're talking about is called 3 Holidays and a Wedding by Uzma, Jalaluddin, and Marissa Stapley. And honestly, if I had to describe this one in one sentence, it's a Hallmark movie with diversity.
Fair.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
And a Canadian one at that.
Oh, yes, Canadian. You forgot to say
Yeah,
Canadian.
2 Canadian authors set in a small Canadian town of Snow Falls, which I would love to visit if it was real.
Indeed.
Can I tell
Although
people
you
the
might get
synopsis
snowed in.
now?
Yeah.
Okay, because then we can actually talk about the small town and everything else. Okay, 3 times the holiday magic, 3 times the chaos. As strangers and seatmate Mariam Aziz and Anna Gibson fly to Toronto over the holidays, Mariam to her sister's impromptu wedding, and Anna to meet her boyfriend's wealthy family for the first time, neither expect that severe turbulence will scare them into confessing their deepest hopes and fears to one another. At least they'll never see each other again, right? Wrong. And the love of Mariam's life, Saif, wasn't sitting 2 rows behind them, hearing it all. Oops. An emergency landing finds Anna, Saif, Mariam, and her sister's entire bridal party snowbound at the quirky Snow Falls Inn in a picture-perfect town. There's a lot that goes on in between, but everyone soon realizes that there's no place that they'd rather be for the holidays but stranded here. It's cute, guys. It's definitely Hallmark.
If you had to break down what the themes are in this one, let's start there because I think they're pretty strong all the way through. I'd say the one that I picked up the most on was making the best of a bad situation because they get diverted to this town. It ruins all their plans, and now these 2 groups of people have to make the best of their time in this small town during the holidays, and it kind of turns out that it's the best place that it possibly could have been for everyone. So there's a lot of joy in this one. There's a lot of taking the good and leaving the bad. What did you think, Aamer?
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. I mean, one of the other themes is just to take a risk sometimes, that the safe choice is not always the right choice for you.
Oh, I like that.
I think that's a prevalent theme throughout the book, and even in the book they start calling it a snow day, even though they're there for a couple of days because of the snowstorm, and it sort of lends itself to that thought process of sometimes you need to get away and think about things in your life to get it all straight rather than just continuing on the way you were.
Yep, those are both good themes. What do I think? Compromise, maybe? Compromise is a good one. There's literally 3 holidays that are being kind of loved and celebrated and recognized in this season. Christmas, Hanukkah, and people are going through Ramadan, soon preparing for Eid. There's a wedding happening. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And some people are kind of like more leaning into making this a diverse experience, and some people are just like, oh, let me help somebody else recognize their holiday and maybe not necessarily get the best of mine. And that starts very early, like this acknowledgement and diversity starts very early in the book. I appreciated that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I never considered it because Ramadan works on a lunar calendar, that it would happen once in a while that Eid, the last day of Ramadan, would fall during the holiday season. Like, it happens once in a while. And this is what happens in this book, and it's kind of what gathers all these people from different backgrounds all together in this one town.
Yeah.
In terms of structure, it's written by two authors, and it's kind of like two romance novels in one, with two main female characters and their two main male love interests, respectively. And I like that.
But who was the real
aspect.
main character? Was it Mariam or Anna?
They were co-main characters, co-stars.
Yeah.
Okay, who would you say is the main
It
character?
was Mariam. You don't think so?
She was introduced second, though, but still.
That's true, yeah.
Still.
I don't know. I mean, I think more of the story was from Mariam's perspective for the book in general.
Her
I
plot
think
line was
more time-
deeper.
Yeah,
Anna's was a bit
more
more
time.
Definitely.
chill. Yeah.
I do want to talk about something that happens really early on. It's just a small exchange, and it has to do with Anna's current relationship, the one she has at the start of the book, where she believes she's about to be engaged with her boyfriend of 6 months, I believe. And it's kind of portrayed as being this ideal relationship, but it's revealed that it's not quite that. But the way it's described, it's kind of like, because both these people, Anna and her boyfriend Nick, want to make it work so badly, they both mutually ignore the other person's flaws. And that's not something that's sustainable over the long time.
Yeah.
Over the long term, I've never really thought about it that way, but that is something that does happen in real life. And isn't that what books can do better than anything else, is word things in a way that make it understandable, in a way that, because you've never heard it that way before, you never fully understood it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, it kind of goes into the backstory as well. A lot of times with these lighter kind of rom-com, the question is, does it explore the themes well enough? Does it go deep enough? And I think in this book it did. Because, yeah, Anna had gone through grief. Grief comes up a lot, by the way, as another theme during the book. But
Yes.
grief and loss and separation, and then dealing with it moving forward in imperfect ways. So Anna had dealt with a lot of her own grief, and in the beginning we had no idea exactly what that was, but you could tell this relationship was the light at the end of the tunnel, or the life raft she was holding on to. And she could tell that. Like, she could tell, she's like, I don't want to ruin this for any reason. Like, I finally got this perfect guy in a perfect situation, and this is a time of my life where he's going to save me. Like, we're good.
Exactly.
I don't want to wreck it.
It's like unworthy stubbornness.
Yep.
She's being
She don't wanna
stubborn
rock
at
the
her
boat.
own detriment. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's about how much you've invested into things too, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, she's on that life raft because of other things, but at the same time, she's like, I've invested all the 6 months, and just not being with him is seems crazy, right?
Yeah.
So, I do want to mention this is a rom-com. I don't know if we mentioned that earlier, but
Yeah.
it's a rom-com with some serious undertones to it, which I really like. This is why I really like this book, and I'll probably pick it up every season around this time, because I just think it's a really well-written book that makes you laugh right from the start in the airplane. I mean, all these antics that Anna has next to Mariam, who's this more serious character, and Anna's trying to like hang on by a thread, but everything seems to be going wrong for her.
Did you find the characters believable, Aamer?
I did, and I think they're much deeper than what they appear to be, and the author sort of makes fun of that as well, right? I mean, the first time Mariam sees Anna, she calls her a brunette Barbie. And
Yeah, something like that.
Ouch.
and which makes you wince slightly, and then you see Mariam coming around very quickly as to that, that not being the case. And you see it the other way around too, where Mariam's nickname is Borium because people think she's boring.
Yeah.
And then you find out that that's not the case either. So it does a good job of sort of showing the way things that are typically there, and then the things underneath, right? I mean, even at the very beginning, all these folks are fasting and traveling, which is not typical. Typically, you don't fast, or even the wedding during Ramadan, which is very not typical. You don't get married in Ramadan.
Which you get
typically.
that, by the way. Like, they talk
Yeah.
about how flawed that is as a cultural thing to begin with, and how there's a lot of taboo around it. Everything is quite explained.
Yeah, and I like that. In both the Islamic side and the Hanukkah side is explained as well, to some degree. So you get a good flavor of people's backgrounds and the way they grew up and sort of the holiday traditions.
Yeah, and speaking of that, the diversity in this book with Jewish characters and Muslim characters, I guess somebody who wants to learn more about different cultures, sometimes in real life it can be really awkward to just ask basic questions because you kind of come off ignorant, but you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, you don't want to ask like, Ramadan, like, what's up with that? Because that's a stupid question. But if you read a book like this, one, you're entertained because it's a good book, but two, you also learn a lot. And so I thought the diversity was done very tastefully. It didn't feel corporate. It didn't feel like it was a boardroom of people saying, wouldn't it be great to have Muslim characters in this? Yeah, that would be great. No, it wasn't like that. There was a reason for it all, and the melding of different cultures, of different faiths was done very tastefully because it happens in real life. We're in Canada. We have a ton of diversity, a lot of different cultures melding. It happens all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, and you see that stereotype coming through from Miriam's side too, right? When she first comes into Snow Falls, she's like, "Oh no, there's going to be no halal place to eat here. What are we going to do?" And then she like walks Main Street. She's like, "Oh, I didn't expect this."
It's so
like
nice.
halal haka, really?
People seem to get it. Actually, I thought it was very realistic. Like the way that you would assume, which is, Christmas is the default. Okay, so people know what happens-ish around Hanukkah, or at least about the candle lighting. And then the Muslims are, like, the entire family are feeling like they won't have enough to eat, that people are unaware in this small town what Ramadan is and what their necessities are or accommodations are. And all of that stuff is depicted and portrayed very realistically. Like the tone of how they handled how much people should know by default, speaking just, as the cultures are where they are, and we all know that it's Christmas time and people are going to default to this being Christmas time. That's the way that the book was written. And so they're not over explaining everything for the sake of education. They did it really well.
It's not preachy. It's not preachy at all.
It's not preachy. It's very organic.
And it's not dumbing down anything either.
It rolls out very well throughout the story.
Okay, that said, like, we just hit on a lot of themes and the melding of different cultures and how that was done very well and organically. That's some complex writing, but it's also somehow a very light read at the same time because it's a rom-com at its core, right? It is funny.
It's genuinely funny. Like
the opening scene, or not quite the opening scene, I think it's like the second chapter in the airplane.
Yes,
was genuinely hilarious. With with Anna being a bit of a mess when she was seatmates with Miriam.
Yep.
And
the nicknames,
a little bit of cultural
things,
disconnection too. Yeah, the nicknames.
The nicknames were hilarious. What Miriam calls it, the mint uprising and. The being drowned in perfume and like the over exaggeration and sarcasm in Miriam's head is hilarious.
There's a lot of physical humor, and that was written really well. There was also just like characters like Dadu came in, the grandpa.
Yes.
Miriam's grandpa came in pretty early on during the airport scenes, and you knew instantly that every time he hit like a joke, it would be funny, or that he was in a scene, it'd be funny. He just was overwhelmingly like just a big character, right? A big, lively,
he's a
vivacious
big
guy.
Old man child, and he's voiced that way by the narrator of the audiobook, Simone Mahapti.
Yeah,
she's really, really good, and like
excellent,
it's funny because the voice that she does for him is so distinct from everybody else.
Yes,
it's really good.
It is.
Really
and
well
so like the
narration.
dialogue and the the counter dialogue, like the families and their spats were funny. The like awkwardness and strangers coming together as unlikely friends between Anna and Mariam was funny. Like everything was really, really well done that way for humor.
Humor's tricky in books though, because the comedic timing isn't there. A lot of comedy in books comes from the choice of words and the situations that you describe, because you can't rely on just timing or the way things are said. You're stripped away from a lot of the things that make things funny, like outside of a book, like in a movie or in audio, but like when you're in an audiobook, it's a little trickier.
Yeah, and tone is so important too, right? In terms of the narration. I mean, I think the narrator did a fantastic job of sort of bringing that to life, right? In terms of when things were funny and how to roll those out from an audio perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Jacob. Like, all the he saids and she saids can really kill a funny moment
Absolutely.
too. But I didn't recognize a lot of that, like a lot of the slowing down or sometimes we're trying to give the benefit of the doubt to the joke or the punchline or the situation wrapping up. But I think that for example, the author did a few good flirting scenes between different characters, right? Like the Saif and Mariam flirting scenes, a little more orthodox, but still funny. Then Anna and what was her boyfriend's name? Josh
Tenenbaum.
Yeah.
Well, that was his fake name.
That was his real name.
That was his real name.
His real
on.
fake real name. Because he's actually a Hollywood superstar. And when they meet, he's offset and he gives her his real name. Although, like, publicly, he's known as, I forget his name.
Yeah,
Chase.
something
Chase. Chase. I was going to say something Hollywoody.
Yeah, something Hollywood like
Taylor.
Chase. But yeah, their flirtatious scenes, which were cute and funny at the same time, were done really well. Like, you say Hallmark movie, but it's true. It read like a Hallmark movie in a very successful way. The humor, I thought, was definitely part of the glue of the book.
Yeah, and you see that even with the serious characters, right? Like Mariam is portrayed as a very serious character at the beginning of the novel, but in her head she's hilarious.
I know.
And I think that's the other sort of the simplistic part of this book, which I like, is that there's only two perspectives. I think for a lot of our modern sort of rom-com pieces, there's multiple characters running around with multiple narratives and perspectives.
We didn't need all that.
It's just two, right? You have Anna and you have Mariam, and we're inside those two heads, and I think it's enough. I don't really want to be in anybody else's perspective for this book, even though we get to know more about the other characters through their eyes. But I think that can really ruin a book too when you have multiple sort of characters running around and cluttering up the story.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to when we reviewed The Maid by Nina Prose, and one of the gripes I had with this book is that the tone was kind of jarring at times because it was meant to be a light, cozy read, but at the same time, it was exploring themes of, like, murder, and if you ever write to, like, murder someone.
Yeah.
And it seemed at odds, and it's similar in this book, but done much more professionally, because it's a lot about, you know, complex relationship dynamics, all while still being a cozy read at the same time. Like, this was basically what Nina Prose was trying to do with The Maid and melding tones, but doing it effectively.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Mariam, as an example, is a divorcee, right? And she comes from a strict cultural, religious background. There's a lot of, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about your past. We don't talk about the things that have gone wrong. And and yet, you know, your family, like, holds you down. You're all each other's number one person. And she especially is everyone's person. Right. But there's things that just don't come up because they can't. But then she has this guy who's known her forever, Saif, who now is stuck in a small town with her. So there's a lot to explore there, and the author did it fairly. They didn't beat you over the head with it either, but you're right. Like, you can stop and think about all the serious parts of this book just as much as you think of the non-serious and the light parts.
Yeah, and I think the other real big difference between this book and something like The Maid is the Easter eggs. I mean, I know it's a holiday read, but there's the more you sort of look at it and different ways, there's lots of layers, and they may not be very deep, but there's a lot to this book. I mean, just the literary references, which I didn't even get into too hard, are there. There's little
like
jokes
pop
and
culture
things.
and literary.
Yeah, pop culture. I mean, there's other things like. When we reviewed this for the book club, I noticed that the names just in this novel, right? You have Anna's boyfriend who's named Nick, reference to jolly old Saint Nick. You have Josh Tannenbaum, which literally means Joshua Tree, right? as a translation. You have Ron and Don at the hockey pub in that scene, and I think that's a
Those are hockey commentators back in the day.
exactly. I think that's a
Shut
nod to
up.
the Hockey Night in Canada. Ron McLean and Don
Ron
Cherry.
McLean and Don Cherry. Yeah.
Right.
No, I just.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's such a good
Guys,
observation,
That's
Aamer.
wild.
And like just this little. I think the first
deep.
time Anna sees the snow falls in, one of the ends is covered up by the snow. And it bothered me for a while in terms of what the author was trying to say. And the best I could come up with was that she was trying to make a joke that it's basically the snow is falling in everywhere and around,
Oh, okay. You're really poetic with this.
But no, just
So wait, the N in
one of the
snow-
ends in the inn.
Oh, in the
INN?
N.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like in.
The
One of
middle
those
inn
ends
was
is not
snowed
the
up, yeah.
I'm assuming the last one. So it's like snow falling in kind of thing. I'm sure
Well,
there's several that
you
pass
can
me by,
interpret
but
that in multiple ways.
Indeed.
You know, like maybe there's 3 letters in. If one of them is covered, it's like there are 3 faiths in this book. Maybe it's trying to say something about one of the faiths. I don't know.
Yeah, 3 hosts maybe.
3
I think
hosts.
we're down a rabbit hole.
But I
We should
mean,
have stopped at
there-
Ron and Don.
there's there's a touch of LGBTQ as well with the Snowfall Inn owners being from Tasmania, and them obviously being together. So there's lots of different diversity that you can take a look at this book from.
The way you worded that, it kind of made it sound like everyone from Tasmania was gay.
You did touch on 2 things and didn't clarify.
That's not what I was trying to say, but
Anyway.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, we got it. Diversity.
diversity. That's
I just love and this is the same reason why we watch the Hallmark stuff around the holidays and the whole, big city to small town kind of thing, right? These people literally got stopped on the way of every type of rush in their lives, right? Like they're running to get a wedding set up. They were running to meet their boyfriend's parents or like wealthy family for the first time. Like their life, all of their lives were just in absolute chaos. And then they got forced to shut everything down and just hang out in a small town. And I love that. Just slow the heck
everything.
down. And I loved that they did that. And you can see that even from like character perspective. So, Mariam, who's just trying to keep everyone together all the time. She's got lots of this kind of underlying anxiety, right? Like making sure her sister's good, making sure her father's good, her mom's good, that nobody's trying to take care of her, that she's going to take care of everything. Don't worry, guys, I got it all figured out. And even she had to just calm the heck down and embrace her new friend Anna and just like slow down in every single way. I appreciated the levels at which this message was being written.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I would say about this novel is that it's realistically ridiculous in terms of the predictability of this book.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is almost ridiculous that happens in the novel, which makes it funny and light, but everything is sort of possible too.
It is.
I mean,
And
sometimes
spoiler
real
alert,
life is ridiculous.
It
and
is.
even spoiler alert towards the end where her sister's like, I did this all for you because I thought you needed something to do. And I'm like, that is ridiculous, but
but
I
true.
could totally see that happening.
Because they know each other like that. They're sisters.
Exactly.
Right. Oh, I loved the sibling relationship between them, by the way. Mariam and what's her? Saima. They're, that was the most realistic part of this entire thing for me. The sister quibbling and the personalities and the complementary between the two of them, but also just like, oh, I can't stand you, but I love you.
Yeah,
There's
Saima kind of represents the very obvious but unofficial favorite child of the family.
Sure.
Yeah. I called her Muslim Barbie in the book club. So
Did Mattel release a Muslim Barbie?
No.
that's a topic for another time.
No, they didn't.
That's next.
That's next. No hijabis in the Barbie mix yet, I don't think.
But yeah, so we see that's an interesting one, the sister relationship, and I love the way, again, another stereotype is sort of tackled in Saima's character in terms of they actually call it out that it's incongruous that she's Doctors Without Borders in conflict zones, but then this is the way her personality actually is. That we see, and there's no way anybody would have jumped to that conclusion if they didn't know she was a doctor. But I mean, again, that's reality. There are people with that kind of personality that do those types of things.
But it's because you're getting more of the dynamic than you are getting to know Saima as a person. You're getting to know the dynamic of who she is in the family, right? Like, you get to know Mariam independently. Like, you get to know her in her head, and you get to know how she's navigating. But with Saima, you just get her as Mariam's younger sister. So you get the full picture that way, though. She's stubborn and spoiled, and like, we have to have it my way, and this got to happen right now. But her personality is also just absolutely flamboyant. She's everywhere. She's scattered, and you know that she's a doctor, so there's got to be a disciplined side to her. But we're not doing that.
Yeah, we're not seeing that because she's around family and's left it at the door, right?
Yep, exactly.
So this book, 3 Holidays and a Wedding, it does characters very well. Like, we've just been going on for like the past 5 minutes about how deep and complex the characters are. But I think something that authors often forget is writing the dynamics of the relationships between characters. And in a way, that's just a continuation of character development, where sure, you can come up with complex characters with backstories and personalities and inner paradoxes, but it's how they relate to each other that makes it feel real. Like, I'm thinking about Miriam and her grandfather. Like, she loves him, but she also finds him kind of exasperating and like a bit of like a man-child. But she can't deny that he's very lovable and she's very loyal to him. It's a complex relationship, right? And that's, I've been saying this a lot, that's life. Because this book reflects a lot about real life, that it's a bit ridiculous, it's complicated, people are complicated, and sometimes you just need a break.
Yeah, and on that, I mean, I think that's why I felt about the ending of this book too. It was the right ending for this book. I mean, it could have been very easy to have all 3 characters, have a wedding and call it a day and put it into the category of unrealistic Hallmark movie. But I think they did a great job of, or both the authors did a great job of ending the book in the right way and with the theme of the book that we've read to that point.
Like, where the characters legitimately would be, and their kind of fears, even knowing that this phase is over. What's the next step? Like, we're all stuck in an inn together in a small town, and it's completely out of reality. But what happens next?
Yeah, and everybody's willing to take a chance, but not go bananas, right?
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah.
Which is no, again, to Jacob's point, very, very realistic, right? I mean, it
is. Yeah, and the only wedding that happened was the one that was supposed to happen. Like, we don't
from the
know.
Most impulsive character.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, this is a book that's also very niche at this point. It's a light Christmas read, and I could not picture myself reading this any other time than in the holidays.
No.
If you made me read this in June, I would have felt very differently about it. But because I've been in the Christmas spirit, the holiday spirit, it's been good. I really enjoyed it.
Would you pick it up again next holiday season?
No.
Aw.
I would. So I read this first in May of this year.
My.
And as soon as I read it, I'm like, all right.
Why?
I know which book, because it looked interesting to me from the synopsis. I'm like, let me give this a try. And I wanted to laugh, so I picked it up. But as soon as I read it, I'm like, yes, I know which book we're gonna do for the book club for December. So
that's sweet. It was a good one.
Yeah, and it seemed the book club really enjoyed it, as I did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. There's your holiday book recommendation. If you're interested, that's 3 Holidays and a Wedding by Uzma, Jalaluddin, and Marissa Stapley. Thank you. Stapley. Thanks, Staples. Guys, that's all the time we have. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
All right, we're wrapping up AMI Audiobook Review. Remember, you can listen to a repeat of AMI Audiobook Review on Saturdays and Sundays on AMI Audio at 1 p.m. Eastern, and that repeats every 6 hours on those 2 days. We're also available as a podcast wherever you find them, and that includes on YouTube. If you go to our YouTube page, make sure to like and subscribe. That helps us a lot. And even leave a comment. We're going to get to it. I'm Jacob Szymanski. I was with Ramya Amuthan. Our guest was Aamer Khan. He's a regular contributor. Comes on about once a month. That's it for us. Have a good one.